Hey guys, it's Ryan from the Centre for Healing here. Today I want to talk about drug education in schools. Now, if my voice sounds a bit nasally, I'm on the back of a man flu, so if it's annoying, I apologise. Drug education in school is something that I'm becoming more and more increasingly interested in. Because of the fact that a lot of the people that I respect in the drugs and the addiction space and everything, a lot of the really top experts talk about how ineffectual and how it's having no real impact, the education, the time and money and energy spent putting into these programs. So I started doing a bit of research. I went into the literature and tried to unpack what's going on here. Now, it's very, very unclear what a good drug education program looks like. It's really vague. There's some that have shown some efficacy. There's bits and pieces that are good, but it's really, really vague when I've gone through it, to be honest. Now, however, there's two things that have been proven to not work, okay? So it's a good place to start with what doesn't work, right? What doesn't work are scare tactics, okay? Just trying to tell kids never to do drugs and they're going to ruin your life as soon as you try them. Scare tactics don't work and in fact can make kids want to try drugs more. Secondly, is having ex-addicts, like myself, having ex-addicts come into the school and share their war stories and about how kids should never touch drugs, which is a kind of scare tactic as well. So those things are proven not to work. And it's interesting because that's kind of what drug education has been built on for so many years. It's kind of the intuitive approach, and it's very counterintuitive to think that those things would be negative. Right? I think it's probably good for parents. Parents would think like, hey, the school's got this person coming in telling our kids never to use drugs. So that's a great thing. Because I think most parents just don't want to have to deal with it. They don't want to have that conversation about drugs with their son or daughter. They don't want to have to deal with that stuff. So the less conversations that they have to have about it, the better. We need to be a lot more mature, in my opinion, around this stuff. You know, we've got to grow up. Scare tactics don't work. Like I cringe when I hear different schools who've brought people into the school to talk to the kids and the taglines are like, not even once. It's like, come on. We've got to stop treating kids like idiots. You know, we think because they're kids, we can just scare them into submission and think that they won't understand that they're being bullshitted to, okay? And it's hard because these companies that come in and try and teach the kids, they're doing it from the right place. They want to help. They've been through some stuff and they want to, don't want these kids to go down the path they've gone down. But to say to kids, no, not even once, I think the actual tagline for that one's ICE, not even once. It's like the majority of people who use any drug, including ice, will not become dependent or addicted. It's a very small percentage. So kids, whether they know that in the moment or down the road, their bullshit detector will go off. So any other message that's tried to be conveyed in that program will be thrown out the window and not taken on board because they've been lied to. So here's my 2 cents on what an education program should look like for what that's worth. Instead of focusing everything about drugs and the fact that you should never do them, what if we instead made the program, the majority of the program, more about connection? How do we get connection and cultivate that strong connection with our family, with our friends, most importantly with ourselves? How do we understand and connect with ourselves and be comfortable in our own skin? Compassion for other people and compassion for ourselves. Emotional intelligence, what our emotions are, how we can actually express our emotions so we don't accumulate any emotional baggage and traumas as we start to grow up. How to be more authentic and speak our truth. Resilience. What about post-traumatic growth? And teaching kids they can grow from traumatic experiences. And then looking at all this stuff and then saying, hey, when one or more of these areas are out of whack in our life and we start to struggle, that's when people start to turn to drugs and can start to develop a drug problem, okay? Because they feel like they are missing something in their life and they are trying to fill that part of them up with a drug or a destructive behavior. Doesn't make drugs evil or bad. It just means it's our attempt to try and solve the problem. And then it maybe talk about drugs, but give actual facts and stats and have people understand drugs and what they do, as opposed to telling them they'll fry your brain, because once again, you're bullshitting kids when you say that. Then we can start to be a bit more mature and have a different conversation, and kids can start to maybe understand that, hey, Jimmy, who's 12 years old and he smokes bongs all the time, and because he uses drugs doesn't mean that he's cool, and I want to aspire to that, but hey, Jimmy must be struggling in one of these areas. Okay, Jimmy needs some help, we need to help him. Okay, the conversation starts to shift. Then I think when we start to treat kids like they're more mature, they'll start to be more mature, and we can start to open up more dialogue about drugs at home. Like I said, a lot of parents don't want to have that conversation at all when it comes to drugs. So what happens when kids, and the vast majority of kids will try and experiment with drugs, that's just how it works. We've been trying to alter our consciousness since we were monkeys, for God's sake. Instead of then thinking, I'm going to get in trouble, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad, and hiding it further, maybe kids can come to us as parents and say, hey, mum or dad, I tried ecstasy, or I tried ice on the weekend. I was at a party and it was there and I tried it. And then we can be more mature as parents and say, okay, tell me about your experience. Let's have a chat about it. And open this dialogue and start to actually understand our kids and them understand themselves a lot better, instead of what's the normal reaction? What, you used ice on the weekend? Jesus, let me get on Google, let me get on some forum, let me ring a rehab. Like, for God's sake, we need to be a lot more mature about this. So that's my 2 cents worth. But the main takeaway is, when it comes to drug education in schools, scare tactics and having ex-addicts share their war stories, both of those things are shown to be counterproductive to helping kids, which is what we're trying to do. So I encourage less stigma, more truth, and treating kids a lot more mature when it comes to the subject of illicit substances.